G'day, welcome back to Cooking with Glenn. I'm Glenn, and if you noticed, I've got a new apron, nice and pretty one. So today we're going to be making another tasteful delight for you and for me. Mainly for me, I'm going to be the one eating it, not you, but you get to enjoy me making it. So let's go through and have a look-see at our ingredients, shall we? We have green food coloring, peppermint flavor essence. We have copha, chocolate ripple biscuits. These are basically a dessert in themselves. You can eat the whole bag and be a dessert. We have some milk melts, some milk, and icing sugar mixture. Now I know what you're thinking, Glenn, what the bloody hell is the difference between icing sugar and icing sugar mixture? Well, I'm glad you asked. Icing sugar is typically powdered sugar, and it usually is more lumpy, and commonly you find it's a lot more lumpy to work with, as opposed to the icing sugar mixture, which has corn flour in it. And the corn flour helps to keep the mixture nice and smooth. So due to the nature of the corn flour, it only takes a little bit of liquid in order for it to dissolve, and therefore keeps the mixture nice and smooth when you're working with it. I don't think it's going to make a difference if you really want to use icing sugar or icing sugar mixture. I think it's just going to determine how your texture is going to be for the layer. But yeah, and we need a few other things, pots, pans, this and this. But let's go ahead and wash our hands and get started. So now that we've gone through all the ingredients, what are we making, you ask? Chocolate peppermint slice. I also have a slice of Aero mint chocolate as well. I'm contemplating whether I'm going to put a piece of these on each individual mint slice as well. We'll see. Maybe I'll leave that to the end. But yes, let's go ahead and make some peppermint mint slice. Chocolate. Greasy pan. Get your baking paper and align the pan, and use this thing to keep the paper nice and flat. I think I've got too much paper in there, but you know what, it's fine, we'll work with it. So we're going to put that aside, our pan. We're going to add our biscuits into a food processor of some sort. So this is 250 grams of choc ripple biscuits. This packet is 250 grams, so it's essentially this whole entire packet. So we have to switch to a different food processor. For some reason, this one doesn't want to seem to work. So we are switching to the NutriBullet, which means we can only do it in smaller loads. And okay. Get some more biscuits in there, now that it's minced up a little bit. Just have to do this a couple of times. Right, so the next step is we need to get 80 grams of copha and we need to melt it. So we're going to get a knife. So it actually says on the packet here, if you can see that, it's actually got a grid of how much of this it is when you slice it. So if you were to cut it here, for example, that's 60 grams. So we're going to cut it just a little bit north of that, because we need 80 grams. And if you don't know what copha is basically essentially just fat or lard or whatever you want to call it. Let's have a look at this. Boop. All right, well that's ounces. Grams, okay, well that's 72. So we need to scratch off just a little bit more off the surface here. Ugh. And try and get it as close to 80 as we can. Perfect. So we're just going to chuck this in the microwave and we're going to melt this up. But we're not done with the copha yet. You still need to use another 160 grams of copha, finely chopped in the rest of the ingredients. So you could just sort of put that aside because you're going to need it again later in the recipe. So while we're waiting for that to melt, we're going to put our chocolate ripple biscuits into a bowl here. Perfect. And then we're going to add the melted copha to the mixture, and then we're going to put it into the pan. So when it's all melted down, you basically just get like a clear liquidy color. So we are just going to put that into our chocolate mixture as well. And then we're going to mix that up. And this is going to form your base layer of the slice. So you want to mix it to the point that there's no light brown left of the biscuits anymore. And it should all get turned into a dark brown color. There was actually a chunk of biscuit there still, but I'm sort of crushing it. That's all right. There's going to be a little bit that's going to have a chunky bit. So then we're then going to take our base that we've previously set aside, and we're going to just basically spoon this mixture into our pan. Spread it out evenly with a spoon. Looks delicious already. It's literally only copha and chocolate biscuits and it already looks good. Mix it around, make sure you get nice and even. You don't want it to cook unevenly. So if there's any large chunky bits, you probably want to put to other areas. Try and get in the corners. There we go. A little bit of Vicky still there. Perfect. So we now have our base layer of our chocolate mint slice. We're going to put that in the fridge. We're going to let that set. Usually it's for about 15 minutes or until you need it, sort of thing. It'd be cheeky not to. Ooh, it tastes really good. All right, while that's setting, we want to get a small saucepan, but this is probably too small. What do we need? That. We might get a slightly bigger one. All right, so now what you want to do is you want to combine your sugar mix, icing sugar mixture, your milk, the copha, half of it, and then you want to sort of stir that, then the peppermint, the food coloring, and then you want to put it into your chocolate mix. So I'm going to just So, I mean, the only reason it asks for you to chop the copha is to allow it easier for it to sort of melt. Because if it's a large chunk, it takes a while to sort of melt down. We're not looking for anything special with this. We're just trying to get it into smaller bits. It does say chopped, so you know that's sort of how you want to do it. Now we will add the other half of the copha to the top half of the mixture. This is just going to be for the peppermint patty slice, or the peppermint slice part, and then when you do the chocolate part, obviously we'll use the rest of the copha as well. So we're basically just going to chop this into littler bits to have it ready to go for our pan. It does say low heat, so you obviously want to cook that down on a lower heat there. Don't want to burn your milk or anything like that, because you're putting milk and sugar in there. Essentially, you don't want to caramelize it. So just finish chopping up these little bits of copha. All right. Now I haven't really done that fine. I've just sort of chopped it into smaller pieces, so that should be okay. So I've just sort of chopped it into a bunch of small little pieces. So sugar, we need 2 1/4 cup or 360 grams of sugar mixture. So, okay, so that's 2 cups. And then we just need a little bit more for 1/4. All right. That's probably good. So this whole bag is 500 grams. So realistically, you want to have a cup left, because we're using 360. So, all right. Well, less than a cup. So we've got that. Then you will need milk, and the milk is 2 tablespoons of milk. I already had a tablespoon somewhere. Right there. All right, so 2 tablespoons of milk. There's 1, and there's 2. And then half the copha in there as well. So I'll put it into a little bowl first, just so I can sort of get it all ready, and instead of having it cook on the saucepan. And then we're going to put it all in the saucepan. And we're going to stir it all up. So the idea is you just want to try and get it on a low heat. You want to get all the copha to melt. You want to mix all the icing sugar mixture up. You don't want to have any large lumps of icing sugar. And I need to sort of clean this, because the problem with electric ovens is if you get water on them, they turn off. So if you do it quick, because I've got a bit of flour on the hot plate there. Yeah. So you just kind of do it like a nice texture. You want it to be smooth. Obviously that icing sugar mixture is going to, shouldn't use the spoon that you got chocolate in probably. So yeah, nice and smooth. The icing sugar mixture should help with that. You want to make sure your copha's all melted. And once you get it to a nice smooth consistency, you then want to add your peppermint and your food coloring into it. So obviously your food coloring is going to turn it into that green color that you get for mint. And you want to basically, once you've got it to a point where it's nice and smooth and you've added that in, you want to sort of transfer it over to your thing straight away, so you don't overcook it, because you're just looking at trying to making it smooth and melting all the copha. So I will say that I probably had the copha a little bit too big, because I can see that there's a few large chunks still sort of waiting to dissolve. So yeah, if you want to use that as your reference, then chop it smaller than I did, because it there's still a little bit in here that is sort of trying to dissolve a little bit. So it's going to give you a weird look. It's going to be sort of browny white color because of the sugar, I guess. So I've only got a little bit of copha left to go. Come for a journey. So we're looking like this. We have, it's looking pretty smooth. We have a little bit of lumps left, which is from the copha. So we want to sort of get rid of those before we put in the food coloring and the peppermint essence. But as you can see here, this is very, very smooth texture. It basically is like some sort of syrup because we put that icing sugar mixture in here. All right, so I think that's probably good to go. It looks pretty good to me. All right, so we're going to get that mixture out of the fridge. Just set it aside. And then we're going to quickly put in our food coloring and our thing. So we only need one. We need one teaspoon, 1.5 teaspoons of peppermint essence. So we do 1/2. And you basically want to do 2, maybe 3 drops of food coloring, depending on how green you really want it. So we'll do that's probably 2 drops. All right, so then we'll quickly just stir that up to make it, get the mint all the way through, get the green. Oh, woo! When you cook peppermint essence, you just get this waft of just mint. It's amazing. Okay, so now we're looking green. We're green now because we put the food coloring in. We smell like mint. We're looking pretty good and pretty fancy. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just tip that into our chocolate mix, because that's looking pretty good, if you ask me. All right. Yes, sir. All right, let's go ahead and dump that into our chocolate mix. All right. That needs to chill in the oven, in the fridge for an hour. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it in the fridge for about an hour. All right. Well, I'm going to clean all this mess up, and with the magic of editing, we'll be right back in an hour's time. Okay, so it's magically been an hour and the dishes are all done and everything is all clean. And we've got to do the final step before we are done. So we're going to take the rest of the copha and we're going to chop that up into smaller bits as well. Doesn't matter too much about this one because they're just going to be melted. So again, they don't have to be sort of like large chunks or anything. But if we learned from the last one, the chunk sizes that I used on the last bit of copha were a little bit too big. They took a lot longer to melt down. So I'm just going to, so the recipe calls for 240 grams of copha total. In one of those little packets that from the start is about 250 grams. So I mean, I've pretty much just used the whole thing. So there's an extra 10 grams in there that you can or can't, you can use if you want to, but it seems like a waste of 10 grams of copha if you're just going to be throwing out 10 grams. So I have used the whole thing. But, you know, it's okay to follow the recipes as well if you really want to. So 240, it's not going to be a big deal. All right. So the next part, so you want to take your copha that you've chopped, and then you want to take your chocolate melts. You need 375 grams of melts. So in one of these bags is about 290, so you need roughly 2 bags. You're going to put this into a bowl along with the copha. And we are going to then put it over a saucepan, which is here. It's got simmering water in it. And we want to put the bowl over the top so the steam melts the chocolate and the copha together. Just making sure I have all the little bits of copha. So I've got it here, copha and the chocolate in a bowl. I'm going to place it over this. And you're basically going to just let the steam heat up the chocolate. You don't want the bowl to touch the water because then it won't, it's same as the last recipe that we did, because you want the steam to be the one that does all the melting of that. So that's just going to cook away. So once this is all sort of melted together and blended together in a smooth chocolatey base, you tip this onto the peppermint layer it all flat, and then it needs to go back in the fridge for another 3 hours. So once it's gone back in for another 3 hours, you then take it out, leave it for 15 minutes out, and then cut it. So basically you wouldn't necessarily, so don't cut it straight away, because it needs time to like sort of get from that cold state to a room temperature state so you can then cut it. So you need to be careful with this. So I don't really have that big of a bowl to do this. I should have probably used like a mixing bowl or something, but that's all right. So I'm just gonna slightly hold the bowl when I'm mixing, and we're going to let that melt away. So when that melts away, we're going to go put it on the layer of cake. So I'll be right back. All right, so our chocolate and copha is pretty much melted through. We are nice and smooth on there. So we've got our mixture out of the fridge. This is look like. Ooh, looking good, looking good. So now we want to take this, whoop, put it on that, mix it around. Make sure we get it all nice and even. All right, so let's try and do this without spilling chocolate everywhere. But yeah, so we want to take this nice and gooey, this chocolate mixture, place it on top of our peppermint layer. Oh, looks so good. Melted chocolate. Ooh, kind of just want to eat the whole spoon, you know. Make sure you get it everywhere. Seeing as I don't have kids with me today, I get to lick the bowl clean, which is good. All right, let's put this down real quick. So we are going to now set this back in the fridge for 3 hours, and we are then going to put it aside for 15 minutes and then cut it. So 3 hours first. Three hours in the fridge she goes. Perfect. So now we wait 3 hours and then we're good to go. So it's been 3 hours, the slices out of the fridge, and we are looking pretty, well, that one looks a bit like a bit overflow, but we've got this nice looking peppermint slice. So that's going to be the end of this video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe as well for more cooking ideas and some cooking recipes. And I'm Glenn, and thanks for watching. I'll see you later.